Guys, so today I am coming to talk to you about a question that someone brought up to me recently. I met with a fellow expat a couple earlier this week, and we sat down and we're having our hot chocolate, and she asked me what is it that makes me want to travel, want to live abroad when I come from a background where my immediate family and some of my extended family hasn't lived abroad or traveled, because we were talking about how my family will be coming this year, some of them for the very first time, to come visit me in Belgium. So that just kind of sparked a whole conversation that I had in my head into the wee hours of the night. When someone asks me a question, a lot of times I'll give a simple answer, but it isn't until much later that I think about all of these ideas and start unpacking what the real answer is, and why I love to travel and why I wanted to live abroad, and what sparked that in me. So I stayed up quite late thinking and journaling and just going through, and I figured I'd make a video just to talk about it. Hopefully this video won't be too long, and sit down and we'll have a conversation about why I like to travel, and maybe in the comments we can talk about why you like to travel and have more of a dialogue there. So this answer is twofold. The first part of it being that I grew up in a family where we've only moved once in my entire childhood. So I was surrounded by I was in a very stable environment, mostly in a small town or in the suburbs of a larger city, or small-ish city, 80,000, so bigger, smaller than Antwerp for sure. But yeah, I grew up in a small town, moved when I was 10 to the suburbs of the city, and went through my teenage years and some of my adult years living in the suburbs. And it wasn't until I moved to Antwerp that I lived in the city for the first time. So I really traveled a lot. The farthest south we ever went, because I grew up in Massachusetts, so the farthest south I ever went was New York. We would go there for holidays because that's where my mom grew up. She grew up in Brooklyn. She is Puerto Rican, so she was born in Hatillo, Puerto Rico, and moved there with her, moved to Brooklyn with her family many years, several months after she was born. I think she was like 9 months old. So I grew up and lived in Brooklyn, and then moved to Massachusetts when she was an adult. So I grew up with, Boston, New York, that area, not having ever really been exposed to the South or to other countries. So I think being surrounded by such a stable atmosphere made me crave adventure and crave excitement and crave, something out of the ordinary. And at the same time, this is part two, I grew up surrounded by multicultural people. So I went to church in the city in Worcester, which is the city I grew up outside of. And like I said, it's a fairly small, large, I don't know, depending on where you grew up, you can tell me. But it's a very multicultural city. And having grown up in an environment where my mom's Puerto Rican, my dad is American, and Puerto Ricans are American, that's a whole nother conversation. But growing up with that, I was always exposed to different foods, different language, of course, Spanish. I don't speak a whole lot of Spanish, unfortunately. I was exposed to different types of music from a young age, more than your typical type of music that, kids my age were growing up with. And I always felt a little different because of that. When I grew up in that really small town, I always was really jealous because the kids in the town, their parents had been there, their grandparents had been there for, generations in this small town, and I didn't have any sort of connection outside the fact that I just live here. I didn't have that connection, that deep connection, those roots. So I don't know, it made me feel like an outsider, and in a way that feeling like an outsider made me want to go somewhere else where I would feel more welcome. So again, craving that adventure, craving that excitement, craving somewhere else where I can belong, that I don't feel weird because, I my favorite food is rice and beans, and that's my go-to meal. That's my comfort food. You know, that I love to listen to salsa music, or that I love to dance. And growing up in that small kind of monocultural environment at a young age in that small town made me crave more. But also, we would go to church in Worcester, and like I said, multicultural city, people from all walks of life. My friends growing up were, you know, second generation Nigerian, second generation Ghanaian, Puerto Rican, Cambodian, Korean, Indian. You know, I had all of these friends that were second generation, and I could relate to them more because, you know, I'm second generation. I'm, you know, my mom's from Puerto Rico. She speaks a different language. We eat different food at home, and I could relate to my friends who were eating different food at home, and we all ate different food together. I don't know. So, and hearing their stories, like I remember my friend who is Cambodian. She told me a story about her mother, who was a refugee coming from Cambodia, escaping through the jungles, and hearing that story just made me feel more connected to her, but also crave knowledge about the world that I lived in, and made me realize that I know so little, and what else don't I know? What other history don't I know? And I don't know, just being, I guess, just being in a sameness environment where everything was stable, but also being exposed to other cultures. Those two things alone have made me want to travel and live abroad and experience this amazing world and see all that it has to offer and hear other people's stories. So even while I'm here in Antwerp, Belgium, I don't just hang out with Belgians. I hang out with expats from all over the world, and I have a colorful group of friends, and I love it. I could never, I lived in a monocultural environment when soon after I got married. We moved down to the south and lived in the small town in West Virginia, and I struggled really hard being in a culture where everyone is just the same. Everything is the same. I really had a hard time. I needed people to challenge me, and I didn't feel challenged that way. I don't know if any of this makes any sense. I apologize if all of this is gibberish to you and you're not understanding any of it, but I guess this is me just trying to make sense of why I love to travel and my background and where I come from and the people that have exposed me to different things, and I don't know, just trying to make sense of it all. And when she asked me that question, my friend, it just threw me for a loop and made me stop and think and really consider my background and my life. And yeah, I love traveling. It helps me, in a way, it keeps me connected with those friends that I've lost touch with. You know, it keeps me connected to the world, and it challenges me, and it helps me think differently and become hopefully a better person because I travel and because now I live abroad and I know what it feels like. You know, I've known other immigrants and other refugees and people that have come into America and now living here, people that have come into Europe, and it's such a colorful, it makes your life so much more colorful and so much more exciting. So even if I had never traveled outside of America, which was never ever going to be an option for me, I was always going to travel, always. I always made it a point to travel. But even if I had never traveled for whatever reason, I still would have been exposed to all of these people and all these colorful stories. And it's a reason why I think I read too, to know and explore those things that maybe I will never see, but at least I would have read about them. So yeah, that's kind of my rambly answer to a question that was asked. And if you guys want to talk about it more in the comments, please leave some comments down below. Give me thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this. I'm really trying to do new things with this channel. I'm exploring, experimenting. If this is not something that you like, be patient, you know. definitely give me ideas. I have some ideas of things that I want to do. I was thinking of maybe doing like a cafe tour in Antwerp and taking you along to some of my favorite cafes. So if that's something you want to see, definitely let me know. I would definitely like to do that. And if you have any suggestions for topics that I could talk about, definitely leave them in the down bar. I want to make sure we're having a dialogue with each other. So yeah, I will talk to you guys later.